Okay, ready to dive in. We're talking ADHD and brain health today, and we've got some seriously cool insights to unpack. Think Dr. Daniel Amen level stuff.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Amen, he's the brain guru, right? Like, seriously, the guy's a rock star in neuroscience.
Totally. We're talking 250,000 brain scans, cutting-edge research, the whole shebang. And we even dove into that interview he did with Stephen Bartlett. Remember that one? Where they analyzed Bartlett's brain?
Oh, how can I forget? That was mind-blowing. It really hammered home one of Dr. Amen's biggest points. That ADHD, it's not some character flaw. It's a real difference in how the brain's wired.
It's like saying, oh, you need glasses. Just try harder to see. It just doesn't work that way. I love that he uses that analogy, by the way. It makes you think about it differently.
It does. And he's got the science to back it up. 250,000 brain scans don't lie. Genetics often play a role, but it can also be head trauma or even toxins.
Really? Like what kind of toxins are we talking about here?
Well, think mold, heavy metals.
Yeah.
Even some everyday products can be a factor. It's about being mindful of what we're exposed to.
You know, that makes me think about that house you were describing with the leaky roof. Might want to get that checked for mold, just saying.
You might be onto something. But seriously, it's all connected, isn't it? Our environment and our brain health.
Absolutely. So how do we even begin to navigate this whole brain health thing? Does Dr. Amen offer any guidance?
He does. He's got this framework he calls Bright Minds. Stands for the 11 major risk factors impacting brain health.
11. Okay, we might need a whole other deep dive just to cover all that.
Yeah.
Where do we even start?
How about we tackle a few that might surprise you? Starting with B, blood flow.
Blood flow. So it's not just about our hearts.
Nope. Blood flow is crucial for a healthy brain. It delivers all that good stuff. Oxygen, nutrients, you name it. And if it's compromised, well, let's just say your brain won't be winning any awards.
Yikes.
Yes.
Okay, so how do we keep things flowing? What can we do to boost blood flow to the brain?
Exercise is key, of course. But Dr. Amen also talks about things like ginkgo biloba. Ever heard of that?
Yeah, I think it's a herb. Is it supposed to help with memory?
It can, but it's also known to improve blood circulation. Oh, and those rocket sports you're always raving about, those are good too.
You mean like skiing? That's good news for me. I always knew there was a reason I loved it so much.
Huh, see? There you go. But let's move on to the I in Bright Minds. Inflammation.
Okay, inflammation. Now that's one we hear a lot about these days, but I usually associate it with injuries or getting sick.
Right, and that short-term inflammation is normal. But when it becomes chronic, that's when things get dicey. It wreaks havoc on the body and especially the brain.
And what are some of the biggest culprits when it comes to chronic inflammation?
Oh, there's a bunch. Diet plays a big role, obviously. Sugar-processed foods, those are big no-nos. But here's a curveball: gum disease.
Wait a minute. Gum disease? What does that have to do with my brain?
You'd be surprised. It all goes back to inflammation. The bacteria from gum disease can actually travel to the brain.
No way. Seriously.
Seriously. And when those bacteria reach the brain, it triggers inflammation, which over time can damage brain cells. It even increases your risk of cognitive decline.
Wow, you're telling me I need to floss for my brain. That's a new one.
You got it. It just goes to show how interconnected our bodies are. What affects one part can impact the entire system, brain included.
Okay, you've got me hooked on this Bright Minds thing. What's next?
Let's jump to T, toxins.
Toxins. Well, we already touched on that a bit, didn't we? Like with mold and heavy metals.
Right, but there's more to it than that. Dr. Amen also talks about things like pesticides, artificial sweeteners, even certain plastics. It's really about being aware of what we're exposed to on a daily basis.
So it's not just about avoiding the big stuff. It's the everyday exposures that add up over time.
Bingo. It can feel overwhelming, but hey, knowledge is power, right? Just knowing about these things allows us to make better choices for our brains.
Right, and it's not always easy. I mean, who really knows what's in all that stuff we use every day? But just being aware is a good first step. Totally. Okay, so we've covered blood flow, inflammation, toxins. What's next on this Bright Minds roller coaster?
Let's talk about mental health.
It seems kind of obvious, though, right? Like, of course our mental health affects our brains.
True, but Dr. Amen takes it a step further. He's talking about the physical impact. Our thoughts, stress levels, past traumas, they all leave a mark on the brain. It's not just in our heads, it's in our physical brain matter.
Whoa. Okay, so it's not just about positive vibes only. It's about understanding that our mental state has a real tangible effect.
Exactly. And this is where those ANTs come in. Remember those, the automatic negative thoughts.
Oh, yeah, those pesky ANTs. Are they as bad as they sound?
They can be, but the good news, we can fight back. Dr. Amen has some techniques for killing those ANTs before they take over.
Okay, I'm listening. I'm always up for squashing some negativity.
One of his favorites is thought stopping. It's about interrupting those automatic negative thoughts right in their tracks. Literally tell yourself, stop.
Huh. I actually do that sometimes, but usually when I'm about to eat another cookie or something.
See? Same principle. It's about making a conscious choice. Break the pattern, choose something better.
Love it. Small shift, big impact. What else can we do to show those ANTs who's boss?
Gratitude, my friend. Dr. Amen is a huge proponent of gratitude practices. It's about rewiring your brain to focus on the good stuff.
What we focus on grows, right? So if we're stuck
Yeah.
in negative thought loops.
Exactly. We're actually training our brains for negativity. But with gratitude, we're flipping the script, training our brains to seek out the positive.
Okay, that's powerful stuff. I'm all about retraining my brain for the better.
So we've tackled the mental side, but what about the physical stuff? Like hormones, blood sugar. Does Dr. Amen talk about those too?
Oh yeah, big time. N is for neurohormones, those chemical messengers that control everything from mood to focus to sleep.
And if those get out of whack?
Watch out. Even small imbalances can throw things off, like low serotonin or dopamine. Hello, anxiety and depression.
It's amazing how much our hormones influence everything, not just our moods, but our brain function too.
Absolutely. And this ties into D, diabetes.
Diabetes, okay, that sounds intense.
It is. Dr. Amen uses it to talk about blood sugar problems, from insulin resistance to full-blown diabetes.
And how does that relate to our brains?
Well, his research shows a link between diabetes and
Diabetes.
wait for it, brain shrinkage.
No way, seriously.
Huh.
Brain shrinkage. Seriously. When your blood sugar is constantly high, it causes inflammation. And not just anywhere in the brain. Over time, that inflammation can damage brain cells, even lead to cognitive decline.
Okay, that's officially terrifying.
Yeah.
So it's not just about fitting into our skinny jeans, it's about protecting our brains.
You got it. Another reason to ditch the sugar and processed foods and manage that stress. Stress releases cortisol, which messes with blood sugar too.
It's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
Stress hormones, blood sugar, brain health. It's all connected.
It really is. But hey, the more we understand these connections, the more power we have to make positive changes.
So true. Speaking of positive changes, what about sleep? That's
Yeah.
got to be important for brain health, right?
Absolutely. S is for sleep, and it's non-negotiable. When we sleep, our brains are hard at work cleaning house.
Cleaning house. Like what? Taking out the trash?
Yeah. Pretty much. Our brains clear out toxins and consolidate memories while we sleep. It's like a nightly brain detox.
Okay, that explains why I feel like a zombie after a bad night's sleep. My brain's still full of trash.
Exactly. And if we don't get enough quality sleep, those toxins build up. Brain fog, fatigue, even cognitive decline. It's not pretty.
So we got blood flow information toxins, mental health hormones, blood sugar sleep. Wow, that's a lot to juggle.
It is. But remember, progress over perfection. It's about identifying your own weak spots and making small, sustainable changes.
Love that. Progress, not perfection. So we've covered a lot of the basics, but Dr. Amen also talks about some deeper stuff, right? Like how does brain health affect our relationships, our sex drive, things like that?
Absolutely. It all comes back to that interconnectedness. Our brains don't operate in a vacuum. They influence every aspect of our lives.
So if we're not firing on all cylinders mentally,
It's going to show up in our relationships for sure. Think about it. Brain fog, fatigue, mood swings. Not exactly a recipe for relationship success.
makes sense. And what about the connection between brain health and libido? That's not
Oh.
something you hear every day.
You're telling me. But Dr. Amen's research suggests there's a strong link. Hormonal imbalances, for example. They can impact both brain health and libido.
Wow, it really is all connected. Okay, so we've established that brain health is kind of a big deal. But what can we actually do about it? Does Dr. Amen offer any practical tips?
Oh yeah, he's all about action. He wants to empower people to take control of their brain health. And the best part, it doesn't have to be complicated.
Okay, give me the good stuff. What are some of Dr. Amen's top tips for boosting brain power?
Okay, so remember those ANTs we were talking about? Automatic negative thoughts. Dr. Amen has a whole bunch of techniques for dealing with those. One of his favorites is called thought stopping.
Thought stopping. Sounds kind of drastic, doesn't it?
It's not as crazy as it sounds. Basically, whenever you catch yourself spiraling with those negative thoughts, you just tell yourself, stop. You can even say it out loud if you need to.
Huh. I actually do that sometimes, but usually when I'm about to eat like a whole bag of chips or something, like stop, don't do it.
Exactly. Same principle. It's about becoming aware of those thoughts and making a conscious choice to stop the negative pattern. Choose a better path.
Right. Okay, so thought stopping. Got it. I'm going to try that. What else does Dr. Amen recommend for keeping our brains in tip-top shape?
Well, he's a huge advocate for moving that body. And you don't have to become a marathon runner or anything. Even a brisk walk a few times a week can do wonders.
Yeah, because exercise gets that blood flowing, right? Like we were talking about earlier, more blood to the brain equals happier brain.
Exactly. Plus, exercise releases those feel-good endorphins. So it's a mood booster and a stress buster all rolled into one.
Double win. Okay, so I'm sold on exercise. Are there any specific types of exercise that Dr. Amen recommends? Or is it just anything that gets us moving?
Well, he's a big fan of anything that challenges both our bodies and our minds at the same time. Things like dance or tennis, maybe even learning a new sport altogether.
So it's about keeping our brains on their toes.
I like it.
Speaking of which, what about brain games like Sudoku or those brain training apps? Do those actually do anything?
They do. Keeping our brains challenged is key as we age. And brain games are a fun way to do that, like a mental workout.
Okay, so crossword puzzles, brain training apps. Bring it on.
That's the spirit. And remember, variety is key. Don't just stick to the same old crossword every day. Mix it up. Keep your brain guessing.
Makes sense. We don't want our brains to get bored.
Exactly. The brain loves novelty. It's like learning a new language or traveling to a new place. All those new experiences create new connections in the brain.
So it's like giving our brains a good workout, but instead of lifting weights, we're learning new things, trying new activities.
Exactly.
This has been amazing. I feel like we've covered so much ground today. So basically, taking care of our brains is about way more than just wearing a helmet when we ride our bikes. It's about what we eat, how we manage stress, how we move our bodies.
It's about taking a holistic approach to our health and remembering that our brain is at the center of it all.
It's like our brains are the CEO of our entire system.
And like any good CEO, our brains need the right support to thrive.
I love that analogy. Okay, so as we wrap things up here, any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
Be kind to your brain. It's working hard for you 24/7, 365. Give it the nourishment it needs, challenge it regularly, and don't hesitate to seek help if you're struggling.
Great advice. Well, that's a wrap on our deep dive into ADHD and brain health. I don't know about you, but I feel like I need a nap after all that brain power. Until next time, folks, keep those brains happy and healthy.